Before your embryo transfer, there's something you need to know, something most protocols don't cover. Whether this is your first transfer or you've been there before, there's hidden factors that can quietly impact implantation, embryo development, and your chances of success. In this episode, we're going to explore what might be missing and what you can do before you transfer. Let's go. I'm Sarah Clark, founder of Fertility. For over a decade, my team and I have helped hundreds of couples improve their chances of pregnancy success, whether naturally or through IVF. We specialize in supporting those with low AMH, high FSH, diminished ovarian reserve, premature ovarian insufficiency, recurrent pregnancy loss through functional testing and personalized fertility strategies. Today, we're digging into how to prepare for a successful embryo transfer. This episode is for you as if you've had failed transfer, early miscarriage, or are prepping for IVF and want to understand how inflammation, microbiome, and hormone metabolism affect implantation. You've never looked into gut health, vaginal, seminal microbiome, or food sensitivities, but you suspect something deeper is going on. You're ready to explore functional testing and personalized strategies to optimize your environment for egg quality, embryo health, and implantation success. Thanks so much for listening. I'm so thankful that you're here. Make sure you hit subscribe or follow. And if you know someone else who's on the fertility journey, please share this podcast with them. Okay, so let's get into the episode. So I have done many episodes on the vaginal microbiome. So today we're talking all about embryo transfer, how to prepare for it, and what we can do right now so we can have a successful transfer. Looking at the vaginal microbiome as well as the seminal microbiome. And so the vaginal microbiome, we want to make sure there's no dysbiosis, there's no infections, and there's specific probiotics and antimicrobials we can use to shift that environment. So definitely check out the vaginal microbiome episode that I did. Before you do a transfer, we need to make sure that the vaginal microbiome does not have any infections. If we got uroplasma, especially if we've been dealing with bacterial vaginosis or UTIs, or we know we have infections, but even if we don't, we still need to check this to make sure, especially if you've had failed transfers. But if it's your first one, you still need to check it to make sure that's in the best shape for successful embryo transfer. And then we always look at the health of the gut microbiome first, and then we work on the health of the vaginal microbiome. So really in a short period of time though, typically 90 days it takes it for the egg to renew itself, and the life cycle of the sperm is 70 to 80 days. So you got to give us time to do some of the testing and make some of these changes. But in a short period of time, we can have success. They sell IVF in packages. They're selling it in packages of 3 because it can take longer to have this work, or people are doing multiple retrievals. They keep doing retrieval after retrieval, pumping your body full of all this medication. And then you got the embryo. Maybe in some cases, the embryo is not even making it. It's being tested abnormally. If we've got a beautiful embryo, we need to make sure that it's going to implant. So we've got to do some work beforehand. And this is the insurance and making sure that you're looking at building a strong foundation. So the vaginal microbiome, and then we work on the seminal microbiome, because the seminal microbiome can impact the health as well. So a lot of times we are talking about female factor fertility issue. We've specialized with low AMH, high FSH, diminished ovarian reserve, premature ovarian insufficiency, recurrent pregnancy loss, but we have got to also look at the health of your partner. And so we need to potentially look at this seminal microbiome for him. So imbalances in the male microbiome can have DNA damage in the sperm. So DNA fragmentation, there could be damage. It can interfere with fertilization and embryo development. So if things aren't working, we don't just change up the medication. We need to look at the health of you and your partner. And also, if there's an imbalance in the seminal microbiome, it can trigger inflammation in the female reproductive tract and post-intercourse, or even with IUI or IVF. And it can reduce success rates for IVF or ICSI. Even if the count, the motility, the morphology, all that is looking normal, especially if you've got unexplained infertility, or maybe you've had recurrent implantation failure, like the embryos are okay, but it's not implanting, we need to look at the health of the seminal microbiome. And so making sure that there's good bacteria there, that there's pathogenic bacteria like E. coli, or that uroplasma, Gardnerella. So we need to make sure there's no yeast or fungal, and then looking at the markers of inflammation or immune activation. So looking at his CRP, looking at his homocysteine, making sure all his health is good as well. And the health of the vaginal microbiome and the health of the seminal microbiome. And if we find an imbalance In that, there's protocols to give to the male partner to be able to address this in a targeted manner, whether we're giving probiotics or antioxidants or a specific protocol to address the underlying imbalances that we're finding. And similar to the female, we work on the gut microbiome for the male partner as well. Because you're swapping fluids, we see infections being passed back and forth. So typically that H. pylori. So if one partner has H. pylori and you're on a protocol and no one's looked at your partner and you wonder why you're not getting rid of it, you're passing it back and forth via saliva, and that can lower your nutrient status. And that could be why the embryos are not implanting. So if there's a dysregulated seminal microbiome, it's not just affecting the sperm, it may affect the uterine immune response and implantation and the entire success of the transfer cycle. Looking at the vaginal and the seminal microbiome, really starting first with the gut microbiome, this can ensure that you've really ticked all the boxes and making sure that nothing's been missed. And your REI is not going to look at any of this stuff. They might test for uroplasma, maybe, but it's not part of a standard protocol to do this before transfer. So that's the seminal and the vaginal microbiome, and then the gut microbiome, which I've already alluded to here. So as part of our Fab Fertile method, we have access to testing. We ship it worldwide. We do food sensitivity testing. We do stool testing, looking at the DNA of the stool. We do genetic testing, which is different than the testing you'll get at the fertility clinic. This is looking at your epigenetics. What are the specific diet, lifestyle, and supplement recommendations to support that, so we can really personalize your diet and lifestyle. Maybe you need more support with your methylation pathways, which we see as a theme with people that have low AMH or high FSH, that their methylation, you need more methylfolate, you need more B vitamins, you need more support with that, and you need to do it in a targeted manner. And so the genetics testing can really help personalize this. So looking at the gut hormone connection, so gut health affects hormone metabolism, especially the estrogen clearance. And we see a lot of people that could have high estrogen. It could still be low, but in relation to progesterone, it's still high. It's going down the wrong pathways and you're not clearing it properly. And it's not about just you taking dim by yourself, thinking that's what it is because you've got fibroids or you think you might have estrogen dominance. You need to be able to look at this in a targeted manner. And we do bring in Dutch testing. I caution, again, like doing one GI map test or one Dutch test, it's only going to get you so far. We need to look at things in a targeted manner, and a Dutch test can be part of the solution to look at your adrenals, to look at which pathways the hormones are going down, to be able to then personalize. This is all about personalizing, right? We can do a whole bunch of chat GPT and look on the internet and see what are all these different protocols, but we need to be able to personalize this piece for you. Maybe you've got leaky gut from all the antibiotics you've taken, the toxins you've been exposed to, the stress you've been under, and that can then increase your inflammation, and maybe then it makes you intolerant to all your favorite foods. So looking at a GI map test, looking at a food sensitivity test, be able to identify with the stool test the pathogens, fungal issues. Maybe you've got low beneficial flora, so you want to be able to support that with specific strains of probiotics. A probiotic is part of our foundational supplements that we use. Maybe you need specific strains because you're low on specific strains, so we can really fine tune this. And then for the gut hormone connection, you can do some sipping on some bone broth, looking at some fermented vegetables. Just be careful if you've got fungal overgrowth, fermented vegetables might not be good. Get some fiber-rich foods, your probiotic, some zinc. You want to remove those inflammatory triggers like gluten or dairy. So we have couples do a 5-day food diary so we can see exactly how food impacts their body physically and emotionally. We have you do a 10-day elimination diet. You can do anything for 10 days, systematically reintroduce over 30, tweak it with the food sensitivity testing, get the gut tested, and look at the genetics, and we're going to look at your blood work too. And so doing all this as we prepare for our embryo transfer beforehand. So you've got that embryo there right now, or you're getting ready to do some retrievals. Well, before the retrieval, you want to work on the health of your body too. We're talking about you've already got the embryo, it's tested, great. You don't necessarily need to test them, but if you tested it and it's good, you're ready to go. We want to make sure it implants. So we talked a little bit about the food sensitivities. If you've got intolerance to gluten or dairy or soy or eggs, that's going to drive inflammation and stress on your body. We've got to look at those. Doing those elimination diet is key. We don't want to be doing that 1 month if we got the transfer next month. You don't want to be doing that. You've got to give yourself some time on this. But I see so many people get so panicked. I'm not going to be able to try, or losing time, but you're going in with an inflamed body. You've got food sensitivities. You've got infections. You need support with your nutrients. Your blood sugar is all over the map because of all the stress. And then we think that we're going ahead with this IVF, and that is not a guarantee. If the majority of us can get pregnant naturally, we need to look at this in I feel like a broken record on this, but in a targeted manner that's very personalized for you. And so then chronic inflammation is going to lower your progesterone, and that can impact your uterine receptivity. Maybe you do need some bioidenticals. Maybe you do need some progesterone, but we can't just do that in a silo. We need to do the targeted diet lifestyle changes along with it. So you've got to take out those reactive foods, typically 6 to 12 weeks before you do the transfer, like at a minimum 6 weeks. But if you're doing all the testing and then making these changes, 6 weeks is not quite enough. It is on a monthly basis. We'll look at your markers and have a discussion with your team to see when it's time to do the transfer. So you'll have some data, because right now you're just gambling. You've got that beautiful embryo. You're rolling the dice that next month is the time. Well, we haven't looked at all your biomarkers. We haven't looked at all your blood work and making sure it's optimal. We haven't made sure you don't have any gut infections or that the seminal microbiome is imbalanced, that the vaginal microbiome is imbalanced. And so taking your health into your own hands here. So the epigenetics, that's what we're doing, that genetic testing. Your DNA is not your destiny. So we need to be able to do those personalized support. So if we're identifying nutrient deficiencies, so if we see there's a methylation issue with your folate, you want to make sure you're doing methylfolate. Maybe we see a lot of people that have low vitamin D. We like the D between 60 to 80. Conventional medicine will tell you it's low if it's lower than 30. But we want to make sure that it's 60 to 80. And if it's low, why is it low? Is there a gut infection that you're dealing with? Maybe that's why. And then we got to be able to address that with targeted supplementation and then optimize your hormones. Sometimes we do need to have bioidentical hormone replacement, or sometimes we do need to have some progesterone, but in conjunction, always doing the diet and lifestyle changes, because all of this piece can then reduce the risk of miscarriage and improve pregnancy outcomes. Immune support. So with your epigenetics, we can provide insight into your immune factors that can, maybe this is why things are not working. If you have had pregnancy loss, it's critical to do the genetic testing. So the genetic testing, it's developed to be able to help improve pregnancy outcomes, prevent gestational diabetes, prevent preeclampsia, and really personalize the diet and lifestyle piece. We can see why you need more specific nutrients, and that could be why that the body's not able to implant or carry a pregnancy to term. So looking at that genetic side of things is key. And then also looking at the detox. I've done a podcast episode all on detox and why that's important for fertility. So then we can make these targeted diet and lifestyle changes that are going to minimize your toxin exposure, reduce inflammation, and really create a healthy environment. And then also reducing miscarriage risks. So if you've got a clotting disorder, or there's immune system function or inflammatory pathways, we need to be able to address those beforehand and potentially reduce the risk of pregnancy loss. And so some of the testing we're looking at, so like we said, we're looking at the food sensitivity testing. We are looking at the stool testing. We are looking at the genetics testing, so we can personalize this. We're looking at all your blood chemistry, including a full thyroid panel, including antibodies. I can't tell you how many people that tell me they have Hashimoto's and their antibodies are sky high. We like them below the TPO below 10. If you got 300, 400, 900, that could be a reason why things are not working each cycle naturally. And also if you are doing an IVF or you are doing a transfer, why it's not working, because the body's saying, wait a minute, we're on fire right now. We need to address this. We want to look at your CRP, your homocysteine. We want to look at your glucose, so your fasting insulin, making sure the inflammatory markers. I just did a whole podcast episode about the functional labs that we're looking at, blood work and functional lab testing, as well as I did a podcast episode on inflammation. So it's key to use testing and really empower yourself. It's not just about going to the person in the white coat thinking they know everything. The REI is trained to do surgeries and trained to give you medication. So they're a highly trained individual, and it can be part of your team, but it's not the sole person on your team. First of all, you know your body best, and then you got to be your own advocate here and see why it is not working. And then if we need to go to IVF, it can be there for us. It's great. We're getting people are advocating to have IVF covered by our insurance. And then I got people doing round after round. We do not know the long-term side effects of pumping your body full of all that medication and the risk to your health. So we need to be able to work on your health and then decide if or when we need to do IVF. Again, we're not anti-IVF, we're pro-health. So you want to look at some supplements, Either you want to make sure it's a methylated prenatal. You can look at probiotics for oral or vaginal probiotics. So some of our foundational supplements, we do a methylfolate prenatal, a multi for the men. Both of you doing a vitamin D3, K2. We do omega for both. We do CoQ10 for both. We do magnesium glycinate for both, and also the probiotic. And then everything else is personalized based on your biomarkers, and not about you taking maca, vitex, bee pollen, primrose, ashwagandha, rhodiola, DAC, NAD, all these different supplements. You could just have expensive pee. Some of those can be good, but are they right for you? So helping things with your stress, like doing adaptogens if you need to have cortisol manager, or maybe you need to have rhodiola or ashwagandha, but is that needed? Some of these supplements can be okay, but we need to make sure we're not just going on the internet and saying, hey, what's good for egg quality, and then pounding down a bunch of stuff, which is not going to serve you. And then before transfer, we need to work on your stress. We need to reset your nervous system, right? If we're like in fight or flight going, this is the last one, there's nothing we can do, like that's not serving you. So we need to reset your nervous system. That's going to improve implantation and blood flow. So either yoga or vagus nerve, so you can sing or gargle. Some affirmations if those feel right for you. Journaling, visualizations that you are fertile, that your body is ready for pregnancy. And we have mindset coaches as part of our team here to really help you. There could be trauma. We have limiting beliefs. We can self-sabotage ourselves, all sorts of stuff going through our mind, right? So it's not about turning it off. It's being able to bring awareness to this and to get your body in a calm state. So if it's getting outside, putting your feet in the grass, even being in community too. You can check out my Facebook group there that's all for low AMH and high FSH. So a community of people. It's not just you by yourself here, right? A lot of times if you say you have DOI or POI or low AMH, people are like, I don't even know what that is. But people that have it, they know what it is and they know what it's like. We can never walk in your exact shoes. I was diagnosed with POI at 28. I had both my kids with donor eggs. That's why I started this company, to really help people. The chat last week were, prior to working with us, all of their retrievals have been poorly tested embryos, and they just did it this week and they had great tested embryos. And they made the targeted changes in about 6 to 7 months and followed protocols. So it's not about just doing the same thing over and over again and changing medication and wondering why it didn't work. Sometimes it's just such low hanging fruit that you've got, make some dietary tweaks, take some magnesium, but it's got to be in a targeted manner. When you start doing some of these changes, you can see massive change with your retrieval, with your IVF transfer. It actually works. Right? Instead of just being heartbroken, it can impact every aspect of your life, the fertility journey. And so we've got to be compassionate to yourself. You could be having compassion fatigue. Really, are you kidding me? This is going on for years. No one even wants to hear about it. Maybe you haven't even talked to anyone about it. Your partner and you, it could put a strain on your marriage, on your partnership. It's not about putting all the things that make us happy until the baby comes. Baby comes in when we're happy now, when we're feeling joyful, when we're doing the things that make us feel good, when we're feeling our health is in a great place, not when we're like shoulders to the ear and just feeling so much stress. And so at a minimum, 3 months to be able to make these changes before you do that transfer. Look at the testing, make the changes. We want to retest. So we're going to do a stool or a vaginal micro. We want to retest. The protocol has actually eradicated and optimized the biofilms and the bacteria that needs to be optimized. And we want to work on the mindset piece to open up the space, to be able to know in your heart of hearts, to lean in on your faith, to lean in on the universe, whatever feels right for you, that this is possible. And it's not about perfection, right? If you feel like, oh my goodness, I want to do it all right. No, it's each day we make changes. And then over small steps every day amount to huge change over time. So if you're ready to improve your chances of pregnancy success, send me a message at hello@fabfertile.ca, put subject line fertile, and we'll come up with a plan to improve the chances of this working for you. Take care.